Lists are fun, right? We talked about the top 5 American jets I wish I'd flown in my career, and then the top 5 foreign jets I wish I'd flown. And today we're going to talk about the top 5 helicopters with some personal stories of how some of those I almost did get to fly as a military pilot. Just remember, for these lists, it's just my list. It's not all inclusive. It's not one's better than the other. These are just my top 5. And it's only 5. Like if the real answer to what would you have flown, anything, I'll fly. I love flying. So, any helicopter probably would have been cool to fly. But this is my top 5 helicopters I wish I'd flown.
3, 2, 1, flight toss.
All right, before we get started to the top 5, a couple honorable mentions. First, the AH-1. It's a really cool helicopter. It looks cool. It's fast. It's capable, but it doesn't quite crack the top 5. And part of that is because I actually got to sort of fly it. The Marines at Bell Chase had Cobras. They may still have Cobras. I don't know. But when I was down there, they did, and they let me fly the sim, and it was really cool. So I kind of count that because it was a full-up sim, and I crashed it and everything. So I'm not going to add that to the list, although it would be a cool helicopter to fly just in general, but it's not quite top 5 material. Also, on the honorable mentions, the OH-58. Love Casmo, love the OH-58 in DCS, but I'm not going to add it simply because I've flown the OH-58A, and it's the same family of helicopters. I know the A and the D are totally different as far as capabilities and looks and all that stuff, but I kind of consider it still, it's like F-18A versus a Super Hornet. It's still the same family. So doesn't quite make the list. And finally, for other honorable mentions, the MH-6, AH-6 Little Bird. I've flown the OH-6 Cayuse. So same family, not quite as badass, but still close enough that it really doesn't make the top 5. And other helicopters that would get honorable mention would all be civilian helicopters or like the Dolphin. This is just a list of military helicopters. Number 5, the Mi-24 Hind. What can you say? Rambo's nemesis. Although in Rambo, it wasn't a Hind. It was said to be a Hind, and they talked about it as a Hind, but it really wasn't a Hind. But it's a very intimidating helicopter. It is incredibly capable, and the Russians built it like a flying tank. It can carry troops. It can shoot rockets. It can shoot missiles. It has a gun, 2 people, nice big bubble canopies, and it's super fast. One of the fastest helicopters in the world. And for a time, it was the fastest helicopter in the world. So the Hind cracks the top 5 fairly easily. Would have been fun to fly. It's just history. And any time you think of Russian bad guys, you think of the Hind. Hell, even in Top Gun Maverick, the Hind made an appearance. So it would have been cool to check it out, fly it, and just see how fast you could go low to the ground like that with a cool helicopter. I think that's a safe number 5. Number 4, UH-1 Huey. Fortunate Son intensifies. It's the most iconic helicopter, I think, in history. I don't know of one that invokes more emotion and memories than the Huey. Obviously, it was the workhorse in Vietnam. Made a lot of history. There's so many different movies that include it. Apocalypse Now, We Were Soldiers actually talks about how the Huey was first integrated in Vietnam. I almost got a chance to fly it. I had a class date to go to Fort Rucker, which is now Fort Novasil, back in May of 22. I got hired to go fly it in training. So I got a class date, and I was going to go. I got a class date in March. I got hired by a unit, and I needed to go to Rucker in May. So it was contingent upon making that May class date. And my commander refused to sign my transfer form, which kicked off 2 years of misery because I thought I was going to get kicked to the individual ready reserve and lose my retirement. But that didn't happen. But unfortunately, I lost that school slot. So I was going to go to the fixed wing to rotary wing transition course, and then actually build some time and come back and do the pilot instructor course and actually instruct for a time period to gain some experience in the helicopter. So that didn't happen. Would have been cool. Although Alabama in the summer with the doors on sounds a little toasty, but still would have been a cool helicopter to fly. And it's still in use today. And until the MH-139 comes on board, the Air Force is still flying the UH-1. We've had guests on the channel that have flown the Air Force UH-1. So really cool helicopter. Just, I mean, who wouldn't want to fly a Huey? Plus, it's in DCS. So kind of gotten a chance to fly it, but the real thing's always better. Number 3, the Pavehawk. And that's a tough one because the Black Hawk family in general, I think they're all great, and I would love to fly all of them. It's a fast helicopter, carries a lot of stuff, can sling load, it can have weapons, but the Pavehawk specifically, because of its mission, back in the 2010s, I guess, now we're saying that, but 2012-ish timeframe, I was watching National Geographic Inside Combat Rescue, and I was sitting there going, and what am I doing with my life? Because I think that the combat search and rescue mission and the So That Others May Live is probably one of the coolest missions in the world. And to be able to fly those helicopters and pick up survivors and rescue people and then have PJs in the back and the crows and just go into those hot zones and make a difference. And I've had Jolly Pilot on the channel. He flies the HH-60 and he's put a lot of videos on his channel about it, but just a cool helicopter. It has the refueling capability as well. And it's just very capable. But for me, it's the mission. I think that mission is really cool to be able to go and rescue downed aviators. And there's nothing better than combat search and rescue. And that would have been a lot of fun and a really fulfilling, rewarding flying. Number 2, AH-64 Apache. I've loved it since I first watched Firebirds. Everybody says it's a terrible movie. I watched it as a kid and absolutely loved it. And I mean, what else can you say about the Apache other than it looks cool? It has an incredible armament. The upgraded longbow has a software suite. And I grew up flying Jane's Longbow Gold and Longbow 2, pretending to be an Apache pilot. So it's got a special place in my heart. It would have been fun to fly. We've had Apache pilots on the channel like Casmo and Daniel, and their stories are just awesome. And, you know, there's always that feeling that close air support is the mission, and to be able to be close to the troops on the ground, actually affecting what's going on. You know, there's that Medal of Honor mission where you think you're about to die, and the next thing you know, the Apaches come in and save the day. You know, that always kind of resonates with you. But the Apache got a gun that's helmet mounted sight that tracks your helmet head movements. You've got the Hellfire missile, the Hydras. There's air-to-air missile capability as well. And Firebirds just made it cool for me. But it's a helicopter I've always wanted to fly. It's a fast helicopter. It's incredibly maneuverable. And it just looks cool. Looks cool on the ground, looks cool in the air. I don't think there's anything more intimidating than seeing an Apache, especially if you're on the wrong end of it. And number 1, Airwolf. I'm just kidding. But y'all probably thought that was going to be number 1, and you wouldn't be wrong. This list is more real military helicopters that were in production. And I know Airwolf is real, but we'll do a separate video on prototype and test aircraft and a separate video on fictional aircraft, even though Airwolf is completely real. It just is not the real one for this video. The real one? The real one. So number 1, the MH-139 Grey Wolf. Not quite Airwolf, but Grey Wolf. It's a new helicopter. It's based on the Leonardo AW139 helicopter, which Leonardo makes great helicopters. They're very good looking. And to me, that would be the modern Airwolf. And the Grey Wolf is meant to take over the nuclear security mission for the Air Force and some VIP transport stuff. It can go fast, retractable gear. It's got hoist operations, got a door gunner. I mean, it's got all of these things. But for me, it just looks cool. It looks like a modern day Airwolf. And so I just talked about the Fort Rucker thing, and I was going to go fly the Huey. Well, the reason I was going to go fly the Huey was because I had gotten hired to the MH-139 schoolhouse at Montgomery, Alabama, and I was going to go fly the Huey to get seasoned, to get some military helicopter experience, and then go to the MH-139 school and become an MH-139 instructor. And obviously that fell through. But I was very much looking forward to it. Gonki and I were trying to go do that together, and that would have been mean, it's just a cool helicopter. And I think that mission in general, nuclear security and being able to do convoy escorts and some search and rescue stuff with the hoist operations, I think would have been a good mix of fun things to do and very rewarding and fulfilling operations. And I mean, it's just, I'm like Gonky. I'm very vain. I like good looking aircraft, and it's a good looking helicopter. And I think the name's cool. Gray Wolf, man. How much cooler can you get than that? So that would be my number one. I'm sad that I never got to fly it as a military pilot. That's not to say I'll never get to fly an AW139. Who knows? But as far as the MH139 goes, that door has been slammed shut. So that would have been cool. Things happen. And luckily, I was able to overcome all that adversity that caused that. But, it's a little too late. So that's my number one helicopter. It's fast. It's one of the Air Force's fastest helicopters now. And it is incredibly maneuverable and capable. Good avionics suite, and just, looks like it'd be a lot of fun to fly. So anyway, that's the list. The reason we're talking helicopters, I'm going to do a Chips Mover Ruins movies on a helicopter scene. I'm a helicopter pilot, in case I didn't mention that before. I started flying. I was obviously a fighter pilot for most of my adult life, but in 2020, I started taking helicopter lessons and got my commercial helicopter license. So helicopters are fun. Fighters are fun, but so are helicopters. So got to give them both love. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. What's your top 5? Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.